Welcome back to the Girl Power Alliance podcast. I'm going to be releasing this one as like a special edition because I believe that timing is really important for what we're about to talk about today. Actually, I got chills when I said that. I'm very excited about my guest today. This is somebody I've known for over 15 years. She is a multi-million dollar earner in the network marketing profession, has impacted, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of lives around the world, specifically in the business world. But she's also a crazy follower of Jesus like we are. She is anointed in her message. She has always woven her faith into her business, which is what we're all about at Girl Power Alliance. And she has had a call on her life in a specific direction when it comes to speaking what the Lord has for her, which she launched in April. Did you launch the sealed book in April?
Yeah, actually March 19th.
Okay,
yes.
March 19th. March 19th. This is Amy Seaver. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Michelle. It's an honor to be here.
I'm so excited. Well, Amy and I have known each other through the network marketing profession. Of course, always followed her path wherever she was. And recently, I was listening to a Facebook Live, random one that somebody had, just somebody on my Facebook, and Amy commented, and she commented with a link to a private Facebook group. And I was like, is that Amy? And I clicked on it and came across this Facebook group called The Sealed Book. And so before I go any further, is there anything else that you want to just share about you, who you are, and kind of your journey?
Sure. I have been a Christian my whole life, and I think I got saved when I was 10, and just grew up in the Lord. But I also had this kind of every couple of years, something traumatic would happen to me. I mean, I was not that girl that ever had an easy life. 2 weeks before I turned 13, I watched my twin brother fall 48 feet right in front of me. And so, it was a tragic death, and it was a crazy time in my life. And so, working through that and through my faith in that as a young teenager, just really set my path. And then, how, as so many girls are, I was raped, went through that at knife point when I was on my senior from high school trip. I was a virgin, but that kind of went out the window on my senior trip with my parents in the Dominican Republic. And so when I was raped at knife point, Michelle, that really sent my path on a dark path. And so I was suicidal by the time I was 22, 23. And it just was I was in a bad place. And so, but the Lord, I tell people, I always kind of have this dual path going, because, on one hand, I've been so solid in my faith, but on the other, I had all this trauma happening to me. And so I finally reconciled all of that and went through some major deliverance. I wrote a book about that journey called Renewing the Spirit, Restoring the Soul, and Reconstructing the Body, because after I'd been raped a couple of different times, and I gained all this weight. You probably would not recognize me if you saw some of those pictures before, because I was hugely obese and depressed, suicidal, all of that. And then the Lord began to heal me from the inside out. And so that book is that journey, the deliverance that I went through, where He restored my soul. And then my body came into order after that. It was only after that. And then I ended up competing in fitness, won the North American Nova Fitness Championship in 2002. And, just placed second in the World Galaxy. It was it was those competitions where it was like military obstacle course, evening gown and swimwear. So it's like Barbie meets American Gladiator. So anyway, but I did that fitness career, and that was before my network marketing career, but I had worked through some critical components, sustained motivation, having a higher purpose for those accomplishments that, I was driven to succeed. And so I had learned some of those things. And then I was introduced to the career of network marketing, and that's where you and I met many years ago. But so, you kind of have those same principles, and that's how we've been able to sustain that all these years too, is just knowing that it's it's not for yourself that that you're doing these things, but you really as unto the Lord. So, it's really kind of been a crazy journey. That's a short synopsis of, this person has had a lot of trauma. That, I guess, if you were to define me, Michelle, it would be, women don't have to stay victims, and we can rise above whatever circumstance, and with the Lord's help, and you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. And so I've taken that whole way of life into business as well. But I really have felt called to the ministry for many, many years. I've had, prophetic words spoken over my life, even when I was 24, 25, 26, that I'm just now being with the sealed book, how those things could come to pass. And so I had this crazy journey of things happening, weird things happening to me. And so I've been wanting to start the sealed book for, I don't know, 7 or 8 years. And my husband was like, no, because you can't unopen that Pandora's box. People are going to think you're a crazy conspiracy theorist. But I'm like, people need to know. I mean, people need to know what's really going on. And so when we moved to Australia 7 years ago, we lived in Australia for a year, and I saw some things in Australia that sent me on a path of research that, once you kind of find some things out, you can't ever not know those things. And so it's been burning in my heart to kind of warn the masses and help people wake up to the truth about the great deception that's coming. So that is what the sealed book is all about. It's a Facebook group. It's private, that allows people to come in, when they're seeking the truth, and they can see what's not congruent with their heart, what's on the news, what's going on. So, but it is a group that will always point people back to Jesus Christ. And I think we have a lot of people that are waking up to things, but there's no real basis in the truth, the way, the truth, the life. And so that's what the sealed book is all about.
Well, I think it's not coincidental. God's timing is always so perfect. And it's just, and one of the reasons that I wanted to do this podcast and release it, not in the order that all the rest of the podcast is coming out, is because I feel I feel impressed upon me that timing is really important, because I feel like you said, people are waking up to things. There are things in people's spirit that aren't aligning with what they're hearing, and they don't kind of know where to go, and they don't know who to talk to, because a lot of times, especially as believers right now, there is a lot of it's this cancel culture, and it's this shame of, if you say certain things and you're not aligned with this certain narrative, then you're the bad person. So people are afraid to think or feel or anything. But, the word of God is rising up in a mighty, mighty way right now. I know that people feel it. I feel it. It's like I have a sense of urgency to know and to hear the Lord like I never have in my entire life. Like, it's desperate.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel every day like I'm in the desert, and I'm so thirsty. And I know that there are millions and millions of people who are feeling this hunger and this thirst inside of their heart and their soul. And so I wanted you, because I think you're so bold, and you've been hearing from the Lord for many, many years. I wanted you just to speak into that for people that are feeling this thing and they don't know what to do with it.
Right. Let me mute my phone here. I'm sorry. It's so imperative that people are able to hear the voice of the Lord right now, and He's speaking in lots of different ways. I tell people the sealed book is based on Daniel, the scripture in Daniel, where it says, seal up the book until the time of the end, where people will travel to and fro and knowledge will increase. This angel's telling Daniel, seal up the book. Well, I believe the Bible itself is the sealed book. I believe that things are coming to light, and I know they are for me, out of the Word of God, that I've never seen before, and things that in my in my Baptist upbringing, and even when I got spirit filled when I was 17. And I mean, I've always kind of been on the edge of, if God has it, I want it, you know. But even me, I'm seeing things in the Word of God that I've never seen before, and so the Lord is really saying, okay, I don't fit in the box that people have put me in, particularly, you know, us in the Western culture that grow up in particularly denominational churches. You know, God is energy, and He's love, and He is, you can't put Him in a box. He put in, you know, self on the planet and on as Christ so that we could touch and feel and see, but he's not a human that we, you know, I mean, he is with Jesus, but he's not, you know, I mean, he's much more than what I had growing up, the box I put him in. And so, you know, I think it's so imperative, Michelle, that we really do dig into the Word. And the version of the Bible, I have several versions.
Me too.
Because it's important to, when people are kind of first getting into the Word, that they don't just get lost in the language. And so I have the New Living Translation. I have the NIV. Those are the two that are kind of my go-to. But the more you study and you can compare versions, you can get a better picture of how God is speaking through the Word. But it's amazing if you get on a reading plan, how God will use that reading plan, just the consistency of your, you know, of you being in the Word to speak to you. Like at what, in the sealed book, for example, there are things I talk about, very edgy topics, as you know.
Yes,
and
I
so,
do.
you know, just stuff that you don't, I call it, you know, it's not your mama's Sunday school class. You know, I've never been this is why I didn't get into ministry, because I've always been edgy. Like, I mean, I'm too out there. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's important to, you know, to have everybody on the wall, right? We need Beth Moore. We need Joyce Meyer. We need you. We need me. We need different people, because the edgy topics that I discuss, that are not, I didn't learn from Sunday school. They're not being taught in churches. And yet I believe that they're the most important, because people are about to be so deceived. And so to be able to hear the voice of the Lord, you know, I tell people there's three voices. You can you hear yourself, there's God, and there's the enemy. And, you know, it's really hard to distinguish between those sometimes, until you get good at hearing and understanding that the voice of the Lord it's an impression. Satan is loud, you know, and it's usually from without. And then your own thoughts are just kind of jumbled up in here. But I hear the Lord in my spirit. And that's what my book is about. The difference between the spirit and the soul. The spirit houses the Lord. The soul is the mind, will, and emotions. And that you can get all messed up in there in the soul. So, you know, just spending that quiet time and, you know, getting alone with the Lord, as a daughter. I know this is for mostly women, but to just curl up in his lap and hear his heartbeat. He will speak. And you know, the key is the more that you obey the impression, the more you will be impressed.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, he speaks in a lot of ways, but he's using people like crazy right now. That remnant is rising up. And I really believe that the daughters of the Most High are going to really spearhead this next move of God, that the glory of the Lord is about to cover the earth like waters cover the sea, what it talks about in Habakkuk. And
wow.
I think it's going to be led by the women. You know, at least that's the prophetic word that I've been getting, is that there is a healing revival coming. And it's going to come through the daughters of God at first, and then it's going to hit the streets. And here's the thing. It's not going to look like anything else has ever looked. And it will offend the church. It will offend religious people, because it's not going to be in the religious box. It's going to be different. The people that are going to be coming across are going to be edgy and different, and it's going to feel new agey. It's going to feel like, oh, this is scary to the Christian denominational people. They aren't going to be able to recognize, no, that's God. That right there is God. And so I'm ready for it. I'm excited. It's coming. All of this is coming, and it's the most exciting time in the world to be alive. But you've got to be able to hear the Lord.
So much of what you said is such a confirmation to the things that the Lord spoke to me. Having no idea what was coming this year, but at the beginning of 2020, there's two specific things that the Lord told me. He told me there was going to be a major shift in the church, number one. Number two, he told me this is going to be a very specific and strategic time for women, which is why he really impressed upon me to get Girl Power Alliance started. And he kind of painted, I had this vision, and it started with a few women, and their lights it was like they were lit up. And then they brought in a few other women, and their lights lit up. And then they went homes and lit up the lights at home. And it was in the cities, and then in the states. And then, you know what I mean? It spread through the world. And I believed exactly the same thing, that God is specifically using women, and it's not women in church, because there are millions and millions of women that love Jesus. There are millions more women in the marketplace than there are in ministry. And so it's going to look different. And matter of fact, I did an event at my church at the beginning of the year, and they allowed me to do it and everything, but it was met with a lot of opposition because it didn't look like a church event. And I don't look like a church person. I just got told I don't dress right, and I do all these things, just recently. I mean, and it's like, you know what? Fine. But I believe everything that you said is such a confirmation. And I know that there are so many women that feel the exact same thing.
Well, we have so much in common, Michelle, because I think if you have a pretty face, people judge you, like just straight up. They automatically think you have a seductive spirit. I'm like, and frankly, I have fought that my whole life. The men lust and the women are jealous, and I'm like, I have.
What do you want me to do?
That's what part of my book is. I've cursed my beauty. That's why I gained all my weight after I got raped by a pastor, by the way, and the second time. And he wasn't the knife point in Haiti, but he was, yeah. And so I went through all that healing because I tried to cover up what God gave me, and it's people don't understand what that's like. I think, where men certainly don't understand that, where you have to work through the trauma of being an Esther, and it comes at a price. And so I think so many women, the Lord will try to steal your beauty first, early and first. Because it is a drawing factor, and I know that you've probably experienced that. And so the church doesn't understand those things a lot of times. Some churches do, but my ministry is not in the church, and I don't think it will ever be in the church. I really don't. I think when I've seen how fast the Seal book has grown, it's been crazy. It's grown. It's close to 6,700 people right now in 4 months. And that's more people than I could reach in a church in 4 months.
Absolutely.
It's like growing like crazy now. Now it's begun to kind of take a life of its own. And it's just like, we can't approve people fast enough to because people are so hungry for truth. They're so hungry to know what the heck is going on. And I'll tell you, some of the biggest growth in that group are the millennials, the younger generation. They're not buying it, and they can see. And I'll tell you, this is what the Lord showed me about the revival that's coming through the hands of women, is that there are all these kids that you see that are rioting. They're in the streets, even marching, the whole, and they're young white girls that, I'm like, and they're angry, and you see this fatherless generation, and it's kind of like, what kind of water boils faster, lukewarm or ice cold? Yep. Well, it's ice cold that will boil faster than room temperature water, because it's already unstable, right? In an unstable state. Well, that's what's going to happen to this generation because they're unstable already. When the Spirit of God hits the streets, they're going to be laid out. They're going to be from hot, from ice cold to boiling hot. And I believe that the healing move of God is going to come through these kids, but it's going to be guided by the women. And so I'm already seeing that. I posted some things in the sealed book about the revival that it started in Minneapolis where George Floyd was murdered. And you got all these people baptizing people in the streets. They're not in the church buildings, they're in the streets. Yeah. And so I put stuff like that in the discussion just to kind of balance out the craziness of Wayfarer, for example, going on right now, and all the trafficking and stuff. So yeah, we talk about some of those issues in the sealed book, and the kids are the ones that are sharing it so much, going, you know what, you got to see this, what's going on. So it's interesting to see what God's going to do with it, for sure.
Well, it's funny that you say that you don't think your ministry will ever be in the church. And I had felt like that for a long time, but then I was in kind of this turmoil place toward the end of 2019. And I knew God was calling me to something, but I didn't know what it was yet. So that's why I kind of got really involved at my church that I've been going to for 15 years in the women's ministry. And then come to find out, absolutely not. I feel so strong that what I'm doing will never be in the church again, that I'm trying not to have a spirit of bitterness, because I feel a little bitter about what literally just happened within the last 30 days between me and my church. But I know, instead of being bitter, I just know that God he's just saying, that's not where I'm calling you.
Yep. Your alignments define your assignments, Michelle. And God is rearranging alignments, because your assignment is probably not, you don't have to preach to the saved. I didn't come to the well, but the sick. Jesus, when you think about how offensive Jesus was to religious people, he just offended everybody everywhere he went. I think it's pretty funny. So yeah, I'm used to that. I offend people too all the time. I've done it my whole life. I can walk in a room and offend people, and it just, so maybe you and I should get together and do a seminar outside of the church sometime.
Can you imagine how many people we'd piss off? Be awesome. I feel more emboldened, more empowered this year. And I was kind of thinking, like, it was my age. I just turned 47, but I really believe that, there's no way I could have looked 1 year ago at all the things that God had specifically lined up to take me to this place of feeling like, okay, God, I knew that He was telling me a couple of things. Number one, that I had placed basically all of my identity in my network marketing business, that I had created almost an idol out of my identity in that space. And so I knew that that's one thing that He was saying, but I didn't know what else where the direction that He was wanting me to go. And I feel like a lot of people feel like that, because it was scary for me, having been in network marketing solely for the last 15 years. I've done nothing else.
Yeah.
I started my podcast 3 years ago, not this one. The other one was called Sold Out Entrepreneur. And I did that only because I felt God calling me to, I felt Him say literally this: if you could say whatever you wanted to say and you weren't worried about who you were going to piss off or who you were going to offend, what would it sound like? So I started that because every area of my life is so wrapped around Jesus. And in the business world specifically, we're told there's two things you never talk about: it's politics and religion. Yeah. So I didn't.
Me either. I got that slapped out of me early, and I was like, wait a minute, I get it.
That's not what He wants. That does nobody any good. That's a lie from the pit of hell. And so this whole thing that's taken many, many years for me to get right where we're at. And, even when I was starting this, I was like, God, are you sure this is actually what you want me to do? Like, the whole world just got shut down. I'm investing in this platform and doing these things. And I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. And He just kept saying, go. But I feel so empowered, so excited about what's happening. And there's another thing I'd like you to speak on. Mm-hmm. There's so much talk right now. And even in the world, the prophetic world, you have two sides. You have one side that is speaking hope, one side that is speaking that God is doing something amazing and awesome. Then there's this whole other side that is speaking fear. And they're
Yeah.
striking. So, and I feel like as human beings, because we've been conditioned for so many years because of the media to stay in a state of fear, that people respond quicker to the fear and they grab onto it faster than they do the message of hope. And I know
Yep.
this, anything that comes from the Lord is always a message of hope.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely right. You know, there was a, and social media, it's scary now because things go viral like that. And I'm sure that you saw the video of the
I did.
pastor that was, you know, with the calendar and the, you know,
People
um,
keep sending it to me.
oh, me too. I mean, I like 5 times in one day. I'm like, who is this? So I finally watched it, and everything in my spirit was like,
Me too.
this is a second heaven dream. This is a dream that came from second, not third heaven. And so had enough truth in it. I mean, gosh, man, it's going to be, the deception is going to be so thick. And it is, you're absolutely right, Michelle. The Lord, God is a God of hope. Now, I will say this. We as American Christians have never experienced a day of persecution in our lives.
No,
We
we
don't
haven't.
know what it's like. I mean, you know, we don't get to have our Starbucks and we feel like we're, you know, so I think that the Lord is toughening up, you know, his church for sure. But also, you know, God is going to have his way. And I believe there is a billion soul revival that's coming. The word says it. It says it, you know, I will cover the earth with my glory as the water covers the sea. That has not happened yet. And I don't think that the church is going to be raptured out of here before there is a massive soul harvest. And so I feel like we're going to see it. I feel like we're going to be a part of it. I feel like we're going to be instigators and be right in the middle of it. It's already starting to happen.
Yes.
But I had a vision when I saw that vision or that guy's dream. I was like, that's not what I saw. I had a full-on open vision, and I talk about it in one of my broadcasts on the Sealed Book, where I literally saw all these cities that were burning. I wish I had my journal with me. I'd show it on here. I could get up and go get it, but I drew a picture of it because it was so real, and it was an open vision. And I literally saw, you know, as went right during the riots and all the people were burning, Minneapolis burning in different cities. And I saw these angels come, like these portals from heaven open, and there were just angels were just pouring into the earth, pouring. And these are the angels that have been reserved for this time. I mean, led by Michael, the archangel, but these beings just coming. And these angels were so massive that, I mean, like people were, you know, cities were like, the skylines were like this big.
Wow.
And these angels were massive, and they each had a sword, and they like the tip of the spear struck these cities, and the glory of the Lord just, and the healing revival started in the streets. These same kids that are rioting and doing the whole, you know, are getting just slain in the spirit, and people being healed, and it just like going in the streets. And so that was so not congruent with what, you know, the doomsdayers are saying, that America's under judgment and all of that. You know, I think we have enough people, when you think about what God spared, because just a few remnant in, you know, in different, Nineveh is a prime example, you know. God always is looking for a remnant that will repent on behalf of the people. And the masses don't get it, right? They don't. But if there is a remnant that will rise up and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, and, you know, I will heal their land. And I believe that we're experiencing a 2 Chronicles 7:14 moment right now. And I think that there have been some wonderful things that have come from COVID. It's BS, you know, we know that, all of the whole, you know, I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I'm so rebellious, but also know that there have been some great things that have come from that, because when you think about, people were forced to pause. People were, you know, the church was forced to take a Selah moment and just go deep and say, Lord, what are you doing here? And what I came out of that with is I'm about to strike this world with an end times revival that is going to usher in my coming. And he's not going to come back for a weak, anemic bride.
No.
You know, he's going to come back for a powerful, where everybody knows his name. And so I think we're in for some really exciting times. I think that there's going to be a lot of deception, with an alien deception coming. But it's going to be coincided with the angelic intervention on the earth. It's going to be like a cosmic firefight. I love it. But anyway, there's a lot going on in my world.
Well, I mean, it says all of that in Revelation. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, if you can, which is such a difficult book to read in the first place. I do what you do. I read many different versions. Do you have the Passion Translation?
I do not. I did. I need to get it. If you tell me.
Get it.
Okay, I will.
Well, I do it on the Bible app because it's not complete yet. It's all of the New Testament and then a couple of books in the Old Testament, but it's just rich. It's rich. I love it. But when I was listening to a podcast and somebody was playing that video from that guy with the, all the things coming in November and all this stuff. And my body started to shake. My spirit was like, I couldn't even listen. I had to turn it off. And then somebody else sent it to me. So I didn't know what the guy looked like. So I started to play the video. Literally within seconds, my body was like, turn it off. The Lord was like, you're not even to listen to that. So I didn't even listen to the whole thing.
I did. And the whole time I'm like, because I had to address it in the sealed book, because there were so many people sending it to me. And I was like, nah, this is not, I don't have anything against him, but we're all capable of hearing the wrong thing, right? Missing God on things. Yes. But that was, and he's not the only one. There have been people that have been preaching doom and gloom and America's being judged and all of that for a long time. That's why I love Kim Clement. In the sealed book, in my broadcasts, I play a lot of Kim Clement. And I actually met him in 2008. He prophesied over me and over my daughter, and he was so dead on accurate with regard to Savannah. It's crazy. But he prophesied about America a lot, and prophesied Trump winning back in 2008. Just if you don't know Kim Clement, you guys gotta go search him out. But there are specific things that are coming to pass right now that he prophesied back in 2012. Very specific. And so, I tend to believe that we are in for some amazing, exciting times, and that there is a revival coming. And, but I'll tell you too, it's going to be hard fought, because what you think about, you bring about. What you focus on expands. And one of the enemy's tactics is to get enough people in fear, and enough people talking about that video and talking. And, we as created in his image have the ability to create with our thoughts in our mouth. And so if he can get enough people in fear, enough people talking about it, then it will have a better chance of manifesting. And so you were absolutely right of, don't turn it off. Don't even put it in your mind. Don't focus on it, because we can bring things to pass with our thoughts. And, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And that's why I get so angry at the whole mask thing, because it's just keeping people in ignorance and fear. And it's a crazy thing. I'm saying how compliant people have become. And I'm like, matter of fact, my husband and I are leaving Dallas. We live in uptown Dallas right now. We're leaving tomorrow. We're going to go spend a month in West Texas in the country with my family on their ranch, because I'm over it. I'm like, I got to get out of here. I can't stand it. People, people, when I see people wearing their mask by themselves outside, I'm like, I want to just walk up to them and go, turn off CNN, dude. You're making yourself more sick. You're not even helping
Yeah.
anybody.
We're in the
That's what
same boat. We're in the same boat. We see people driving past us in the car by themselves with their windows up and their mask on. We're like, you're going to suffocate in there, buddy. You're going to actually pass out and suffocate. But I agree with you wholeheartedly. But, I have to tell you, this is, and then I want to do a closing question for you. But I've started to get really discouraged because I was like, wow, I always wondered about like Hitler and Nazi Germany, how people could turn on other people so quickly. Like you had people that lived together in Europe side by side in these countries and they were peaceful. They didn't hate each other. They weren't, murdering each other. And then literally what seemed like in a blink of an eye, you had people turning on each other and turning the Jews in so they could literally walk to their slaughter. And I always wondered, my heart was always grieved. Like, how could human beings do that? And then
Right.
And then you look at today and you look at how quickly neighbor have turned on neighbor, family member have turned on family member over a mask. And then God really showed me that, and instead of being grieved and instead of being sad that people are so easily led into false doctrine and just, you know what I mean, bad leadership. What he did was he impressed upon me the incredible, valuable, necessary job of biblical leaders and how it is not, and the word leadership is thrown around. It is thrown around. If there's more books written about leadership than any other subject in the world, and yet there's so little of it. There's so little of it. And so it's one of the things that I'm so passionate about. I'm doing a whole 16-week leadership thing for women that I'm building right now that God's just filling up. I'm excited about that. That's going to come out hopefully in October. That's when, I believe that's what God's saying. So I'm working on that. But I think about the story of Moses, right? And these people saw miracles with their eyes. They experienced it. They watched it. They lived miracles. And yet Moses goes up on the mountain to write the tablets, and that quick they all went back. And it shows me how wildly important it is for us as women, as biblical leaders, to stand firm, to not move, to be bold, and to continue to fight the fight.
Yes, absolutely. I'm so, we haven't connected in a while. And so it's so good to hear us being both on the same page. And I'm serious about maybe you and I should get together
100%.
and do something, because people have been asking me, when are you going to do a sealed book conference or whatever? And I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea, but we did. People are, but I'll tell you, they're sick of churches. But
Yes,
if the church had been able to get it done,
would have been done.
We wouldn't have this issue, right? And so people are going to have to kind of get out of that comfort zone. And I'm really believing that we're going to probably end up losing some people, like people that we thought were the leaders.
Yes,
are going to be, and then, Kim prophesied that there's going to be an upturning, turning upside down in the church. God always judges the house of the Lord first, right? But people, I don't know that they will leave necessarily out of sin, but mostly out of offense, like out of being offended that it doesn't look like they thought it would, just like in Jesus' day. So, it is absolutely imperative in wrapping that up is for us to not try to put God in a box, but just in our own walk, be obedient and say, you know what are my gifts? What are my talents? What is it that I can do that God can use outside the church? It may be in the church, but I'm thinking, ask him if you have permission to be outside the church, and what is it that you do that he can put his creative power on and give you a supernatural calling, and so you've done that. We've both been trained up in network marketing. We both can speak. We're comfortable in that role. But that secular, this is what the Lord kept telling me about when I finally said I got to start the sealed book. And because of the nature of the things that I talk about, then that's what my husband was stopping me. He was like, Amy, you don't want to put yourself out there like that.
Same.
Oh my God, he was scared to death. And I have these hairs that are driving me crazy. But Steve, he held me back for so many years, just going, you're going to talk about what? Nephilim? What? And so I finally had to say to Steve, babe, I love you, but I'm telling you, I have to be obedient to the Lord. You can either support it or not, but I'm not gonna stay silent anymore. And I have to, and we have a great marriage, and he's like, okay, I'll cover you, you know, and occasionally he gets in there and, delete somebody that thinks that is
Good.
a platform to debate. I'm like, this is not a platform debate. This is a platform for me to share the truth, and it's not up for debate. So he gets in there and deletes people that are being unruly, but it's important to find your niche. And I know that I'm so happy that you've done that, Michelle. And I just want to challenge the people that are listening or watching that, every single person that is waking people up to the truth of Jesus Christ and him crucified, God will use you. All you have to do is be willing and use you in multiple ways. But look for ways outside of the religious paradigm, because that's where he's moving right now. Totally.
Amen. So, okay, just so everybody that is listening or watching knows, I'll have all of the ways that you can connect with Amy. I'll have the link to the sealed book. I'll make sure that you have the information about her book, not the sealed book, but Amy's book, and any other ways that she wants you to connect with her. And man, what an honor. I know for sure that this is the beginning of whatever God's going to do with you and I together. And I'm so stoked about it.
Me too. I don't know if this has happened to you or probably some of our listeners, but I've always had a hard time connecting with women because women are jealous. I mean, and I think that right now, part of the remnant rising up is that the daughters are supporting each other. And I've seen more unity beginning to happen in women, and God aligning strong, powerful women together. And it's a force to be reckoned with, no doubt. So I look forward to what God's going to do through the friendship, for sure. Thank you for reaching out to me. My goodness.
Well, thank you for taking time to get on here and be one of our special episodes that I'm gonna put out literally like right the first week in August. So thank you so much. I appreciate you, praying for you, and we'll see what happens next.
Okay, well, I will be praying for you too, and I appreciate you. I tell you, if you are following Michelle in this podcast, and you can just from the leadership that I've seen her exhibit in her network marketing career, you're absolutely right. Leaders are few and far between, true ones, and you are absolutely that. So you guys are in good hands for sure.
Thank you, Amy.
You're welcome.
Okay.